Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Fuller here, and in today's video we're going deep into Metasounds. We are going to build this. We are building a Chromatic Polysynth in the Unreal Engine using Metasounds. We're going to build off of the Metasound synthesizer that we made in previous videos, and we're going to construct this into a playable synthesizer where we can use the QWERTY keyboard to play notes, chromatic notes, one octave, multi-voice polyphonic synth. And we're going to dig in. Now this is going to be a little bit longer of a video. I thought about breaking it up into smaller sections, but I think it's better to just do it all in one video. So there will be markers down in the comment section that you can jump to different parts. If you want to skip ahead or go back, you can do that just by clicking on the timestamps in there. Otherwise, buckle in and enjoy the ride, and we're going to jump in right now. Okay, so our end result is going to look like this. I was kind of getting tired of the gray grids, so I just made a little kind of Hoth-like snowscape here with some fires and some wood and all that stuff, just so it's not quite as boring. And I've got our keyboard here. This is the important part here. I got a little bit of a little grass base here, but that's just for fun. You don't have to do that, but like I said, sometimes it's nice to add to the creativity. So we're gonna build this all from scratch. So I'm gonna just go ahead and click on this and delete it. And so you're gonna start with this open world right here. And let me know if you want this session. I can put this Unreal session online if you want to be able to download it and use this. Some of these assets are from the Quixel Bridge, so you'll have to download those yourself. But I will put a link to the 3D model that I use in this, so you can kind of just jump in and get started. So this video is going to have 5 main parts. The first part's going to be just an overview of the Metasound synth that we made in previous videos. If this is your first video on my page, please go back and check out the Metasounds 101 video first, so you're not totally lost. Unless you already know about Metasounds, then you can just jump right in. The second part of this video, I'm going to show you how to build just the single keyboard component, the one key that's going to have a lot of our blueprint logic, it's going to have our Metasound and all of the functionality that we're going to use to build the whole keyboard. In the third section of the video, we're going to assemble all those keys together, all 12 of them, so that we can make a chromatic keyboard from C all the way up to an octave higher C. In the fourth section, we're going to pull that into the game and show you how to interact with that and some of the things you can do with that. And then the final part of the video, we're going to show just how you can kind of use the Metasound to tweak the sounds itself and play different sounds with your keyboard. Little disclaimer here, this video is not intended to replace this, a MIDI controller. We're not trying to replace a MIDI controller because that would be foolish. You could just use a MIDI controller. What we're doing really is exploring the functionality of Metasounds and what's capable with the Metasounds and in-game. And so we're using the QWERTY to kind of become a MIDI controller, but there are things a MIDI controller can do that the QWERTY keyboard can't, like velocity sensitivity and things like that. So we're not trying to build this so we can produce music, otherwise we would just use a MIDI keyboard and a DAW. What we're doing is we're exploring the possibilities of Metasounds. So again, Metasounds is a way of thinking, and so it just kind of opens your mind to other possibilities that you can do, whether it be with Foley, sound effects, or whatever. So this is more of an exercise and to expand the functionality of Metasounds, and then also to expand the way we think when it comes to our characters and our games interacting with some of these musical ideas. It could lead to, like maybe a musical puzzle in a game where you play a certain melody and it opens a gate, kind of Indiana Jones style and stuff like that. Or it could be like a music game, like a Guitar Hero type thing. So there's lots of possibilities, but just a little disclaimer, we're not trying to build a fully functional replacement for a MIDI controller. We're just expanding on concepts, and that's the purpose of this video. But it is going to be fun, and we're going to create some cool sounds. So let's jump in. So for part 1, let's just look at our Metasound. This has already been built in previous videos, at least a version of it. In one of my last videos, I talked about how to expose variables in the part 3 of the series. In this, we're just basically using a square wave oscillator Metasound, and I'll show you that real quick. Again, if you haven't watched the other videos, go back and watch those, because this is where you'll learn how to make this. So this is the building block. Without this, we have no sound. So this is the core musical piece of this. It's very simple. It's actually the simplest part of this tutorial, but I just wanted to show it to you real quick. We don't need these nodes here. Here it is. We got the oscillator with a little envelope generator. We've got a node on, node off command that sounds like this. Trigger on, trigger off. You can change the attack and all that stuff, and we'll do that later. And then we've got this input variable that allows us to manipulate what note's being played. And if you'll hear here, we got a full wide range, 2 octaves worth of notes. We're not using all of those. We're just going to use 12 of them. So anyways, that's how you set up the Metasound. That's really important to do that properly. Now, we're going to use the same Metasound for all of these keys. And the reason we're doing that is because, for one, each key will have its own voice. So in theory, we have a 12-voice polyphonic synthesizer. So you could play a 12-note chord. That would sound terrible, but you could do it. But you are able to play, polyphonic chords. But more importantly, you can use this one Metasound to tweak the actual sound, which you would call a patch. So if you want to create a warm pad-like sound, you only have to do it once, and then all of the keys will be referencing that sound, different iterations of that Metasound. So, all right, let's move on. So we've got our Metasound. Now I want to, let's get into the physical key component of the Metasound. And I want to show you this. I built this. I am not a 3D designer. Matter of fact, this is the first time I've ever used Blender. But I created this simple 3D model. And it's just, it's like a variation of a cube. It's very simple. But what it allows us to do is it allows us to kind of simulate a piano key in kind of a stylized way, almost like a prehistoric, like Stonehenge type piano key. I am making that model available. Just there's a link in the description to download that asset, so you don't have to build that from scratch. I don't want to waste your time. But that's the main physical representation of the key. We're going to use that for the regular natural keys and the sharp keys as well. We're going to resize it and color it for the sharp keys. But let's jump into actually building our first key. Now you can see down here, I've got all my keys set up already, but we're going to build them from scratch. Okay, so let's make this key. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to create a blueprint class and an actor, and we're going to call that BP key, and we're going to call that C. This is going to be our C note on the piano, and we're going to double click this, and right now you just see an empty viewport. So we're going to come down here. Actually, let's dock this up here, and we're going to come down here. We're going to add our 3D model piano key. We're going to back up a little bit, and there it is. There's our model. I'm going to go down here and materialize this with Chrome. I like Chrome. So we're going to make this Chrome. Now, we have this nice Chrome key and nothing else. So at this point, if we drag this into our world, there we have it. And we hit play, and there's our big key. Nothing happens. It's zero functionality. You can jump on it if you want to, like a scene from Big, but that's that. So that's the basics. So now what we're going to do, first thing I want to do is I want to resize this. I'm going to resize the y-axis to 0.5, and that's going to make our key a little skinnier. If we compile that and look over, there it is in the world. That's the size we want it right there. You can change that to whatever size you want. You can materialize it. You can make it look like whatever you want, but we're going to just keep it at Chrome for now. Now, we have to do some magic here to make it animate. So the first thing we're going to do is animate it so that when you press the key, it animates down like you're playing it. And this is going to get a little hairy, but just kind of stick with me here. The first thing we need to do is we need to allow this blueprint class to receive input from the QWERTY keyboard. And this took me a little while to figure out. I don't know why it felt so difficult, but props to my friend Jesse Henning, a VFX artist friend of mine who taught me about how to do this. We're going to have to enable the input, and we're going to have to do that in the blueprint. So we're going to go over here. We don't need this. We don't need this. We do need the event begin play. What we're going to do is we're going to drag off this, and we're going to add the enable input node. Boom. Then off of player control, we're going to type get player control and leave that at index 0. That seems simple, but if you don't know how to do it, you're gonna get a lot of headaches. This is a very good thing to learn. So that's all we have to do. Now this blueprint will listen for the player control. So when I press a note on my keyboard, it will hear that and it will receive that and it will use that in our logic. So that's really important, critical step. Now the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna create 2 variables. We're gonna do that over here. We're gonna create up and we're gonna create down. These variables are gonna be transform variables. You'll see why in a second. And we're gonna compile that. So now we have these 2 variables. Now what we have to do is we have to set those. So we're gonna set the up. The up variable will reference, let's go drag that in and put set up, and then right click, split struct. And that's gonna give us this location and rotation. We need this to animate the key. We need the rotation to go boop and then back up. So that's how we're gonna do that. We're gonna pull that variable in. Now we're gonna pull in the down. We're gonna go over here. We're going to set down. We don't wanna get down, we want to set down. So what this is doing is on event begin play, it's going to set our rotation. It's gonna set the rotation of the key and then the up position of the key, meaning nothing's being pressed. And then we're gonna lerp transform that to the down position, okay? Via rotation. And so the way we do that is this. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna drag our piano key in because we need this reference. Then we're gonna go over here. We're gonna get transform. We're gonna get relative transform of this. Then we're gonna right click, split struct. So we're gonna drag this over to up rotation. Oh, and you know what? Let's connect to this node so it happens right on the event begin play. Then we're gonna go from this node to this node. Now remember, these are just variables right now. You're setting this variable, you're setting this variable. You're not doing anything with them yet. You're just setting the variable. So I wanna come up here and then I want to transform rotation. Okay, I'll split this, and then I want to bring this to here, compile. Now we've got our transform rotation, and then we're going to set this. What are we going to set this to? Well, let's just see here. Let's look at our viewport, and let's click on this, and let's just do a test. Let's say we're going to bring this down. Oh, that looks about right. -10 on the Y, the pitch axis. So we'll rotate that negative, we'll transform that -10. So we'll come over here, we're gonna go rotation, -10 on the pitch axis. So now, when this happens, it's going to do that animation. Now what we gotta do is program the logic for that animation. So the way we're gonna do that is we're gonna come up here, we're going to now add our keyboard control. So we're gonna make this C. So let's go keyboard C. That's the qwerty note we're going to be using. When we press this, it's going to do something. What's it going to do? We're going to animate it with a timeline. So we're going to drag out of here. We're going to go timeline. Go add a timeline. We're going to call this Keypress. Okay. And then we're going to double click on this, and we are going to add a float track. So the float is a number that it's going to use to animate. We're going to change the length of this to 0.15. We're going to name this we'll name this Keypress. Okay. Then we are going to add a key float here, right click there and right click there. This one we're going to take all the way up. We'll take that to 1. And then at here, we're going to go, that's going to be at 0, 0. And then this one's going to be 0.15 to 1. So now we've got our timeline, and we just need to tell it what to do during that timeline. So we're going to go back to our event graph. Then we're going to come in here. We're going to drag in our keyboard key, our 3D model, because we're going to reference that. we're going to pull off here. We're going to set relative transform. We're going to do it on update. So now we're going to update this relative transform to animate this key. What are we animating? The up and the down. So we're going to bring in the up variable, get up, get up. Then we're going to go get down. That's kind of cheesy, but whatever. Get up and get down. And we're going to lerp transform between these because this is necessary. So our A is going to be our up, our B is going to be our down. Okay, let's move this up a little bit. There we go. Our Keypress will be our alpha. Oh, I put the wrong note in here. That's not reset. That is set relative transform. There we go. That's what we want to do. Oh, it brought our reference in. So we want to set relative transform. Then our return value is going to be to our new transform. Let's compile that. All right, we compile that. Now that should be it. If I did it all right, this should work. So let's go back to our tutorial and let's see what happens. There it is. Okay, so now, that's funny. Let's watch that again. So it scaled it when I pressed it and then pressed it down. So what we got to do is we got to make sure that I got the scale on. Let's go down scale will be let's see here, downscale. What did I put? Where did I make that key? Where's my key? Oh yeah, here we go. Let's go piano key. There it is. What did I make this at? Let's go viewport. Okay, so our scale is 1.5 and 1. So let's change that over here in our event graph. 1.5, 1. Oh yeah. So we got to change this also. 0.5. Okay, so we got to change that here. I forgot. We got to do make sure all of these scales are the same. There we go. So those are all 0.5. Now it's all the same. It's not scaling the size. So there we go. So that's our down. Now we got to get that key to come back up. And all we got to do on this one is take the release button and reverse it. What that'll do is wherever it is in the timeline, when you release it, it'll just reverse the timeline. It's making a smooth animation. So let's check that out. See, done. Boom. That's what we want. Let's check it out from this angle over here. Boom. Okay, so now we have our key. Now it took us a while to do that, but don't despair because that's probably the hardest part of this tutorial is animating the stupid key. So let's comment this section out. Okay. So now we have an animation, but we don't have any sound. And the point of this tutorial is to make sound, but we wanted it to look cool too. So now that we've got this working, let's add sound. So the way we're going to do this, because this is a polyphonic synth, we're going to create one voice per key, which actually makes this easier. So what we want to do is we're still in our key component. We are going to bring in our Metasound, which is here, Metasound reveal, which you created in a previous tutorial. So we're just going to drag that in. And now that sound is in our world, in this key, inside this key, and we can reference it now. And the way we're going to do that is simple. We are going to drag in a reference to our Metasound. And you know what? Let me go ahead and there's our Metasound right there. So we got to drag in our reference, which will turn on the Metasound. But now we've got to do a note on and a note off. So the way we're going to do this is we are going to set trigger parameter, or I'm sorry, execute trigger parameter. And this is going to, we're going to actually put this in front of the animation. So let's release this. And so for now, we're going to go when this is pressed, and then it'll just trigger through back to where we were. This is going to be the note on. Then we're going to make another one, and this is going to be the note off. We also got to make sure that this is also pointing to this reference. So now this release is going to go to the note off, and then we're going to pull through from the reverse. So what we've done essentially now is just inserted the trigger parameters to the Metasound in between the key press and the animation. Now what we got to do, and this is really important, we got to name these. So the first one is called note on with no space and note off with no space. So we'll come back here, note on, no space, note off, no space, and capital O. Now when we compile it, and go over here, we hear it. Yay! We're like halfway there. We are on our way to making some sweet keyboard. Now, we've done a lot of the heavy lifting now. However, it's just one note, right? That's the note that's set right here, which is the C, which is fine, but we want to control that note. And the way we're going to do that, we're going to come over here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come over here, and off of this node, we're going to reference this. Oh, no, not that. We're going to reference this, the Metasound. We are going to set float parameter. And off of this one, I got to get that. I don't need that. It did it. It added the reference for me, which is great. We're going to set the float parameter, and what this is going to do is this is going to tell the Metasound what note to play. We're going to put 60 because that's the note that we want to play. 60 is middle C, and every note goes up one. So C sharp is 61, D 62, D sharp 63, etc. I'll put a list there so you see the exact representation of the major scale if you want to. And so now when we press this note, this is our completed key now. It's going to animate, it's going to trigger note on, it's going to trigger this note, and then when we release it, it's going to trigger note off, which will instigate the trigger release and end the sound at this pitch. So let's check that out. You won't hear a difference now because it's the same note. But if I go in here and I change that, let's change that to if I go in there and change that, let's say I go to 72. Now it's an octave higher. Not at all. Why didn't that work? Oh, good. I'm glad I found this. I didn't name this. Common mistake. Got to name this. It's got to be named square frequency. I'm glad I missed that so you could see it. That's very common to do that. Square frequency. That's what happens when you don't name this in name function. You don't get any reaction. So now let's do it. That's what we want. So it's just again, you know, just mess around, you make mistakes and fix them and move on, and you'll learn from that. So that's it. That's all for the key. So now we have a fully functioning animated key that goes down and changes a pitch. Let's change this back to 60. So we are over halfway there in this tutorial, so congrats if you've made it this far. Because now what we want to do is we want to build the blueprint class for the entire keyboard. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to go down here, we're going to right click, blueprint class, actor. We're going to call this blueprint polysynth build. Now what we're going to do is we're going to construct our entire keyboard in here. And here's a couple things we got to do first. First, we have to take this key, the C key, and we have to duplicate this as many keys as we want for each note. So we're going to go duplicate. We're going to name this D. We're going to duplicate this. We're going to name this E, and etc., etc. So we got to do this for all the notes from C all the way to C, and then the octave higher I named C1 because that would be the note that it is on the keyboard, and then another octave would be C2. If you went an octave lower, it'd be C-1. So that's typical naming convention for MIDI notes. So now we've got our natural notes, and now we got to make our sharp and our sharp notes. And so the way I'm going to do that, I'm just going to make a copy of this one. I'm going to duplicate it. And you can't use a hashtag like the tic-tac-toe sign, the number sign. You can't use that. It won't allow you. You can't use the character. So I'm just going to denote a sharp as a small s. So where it says key CS, that's going to be a C sharp. And what I want to do is I want to double click on there. I want to go to the viewport, and I want to change this color. We're going to change this to gold right here. So that's going to be gold. And then we're also going to size this down a little bit. But the way I'm going to do that, as not to mess up the animation, I'm going to resize it in the actual keyboard build. And so once you duplicate all of your notes, we're going to go C sharp, we're going to duplicate this to D sharp. And this is the long boring part, but you know, sometimes you just got to push through to there's no E sharp, it's just an F sharp. That's all it is. we don't need the 1 here either. Let's go get that 1 out of there. F sharp, we do need a G sharp. And finally, we need an A sharp. And that gives us all 12 notes. You can count them here, but there's 12 of them. So now we're going to go back to the build, and we're going to go to our viewport. Actually, no, we're going to get off of this. We're going to go into our Polysynth build, and now we're going to construct this using our key assets. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go to our content drawer, and let's start with C. We're going to drag this in. Boom. Now we have this guy here, and I'm going to come around here a little bit. Now we have C, and we're going to drag in D. Definitely do this in order, because if you don't, you will regret it. Make sure that's under the default root scene. And if you just go all the way to the edge, it'll snap, and then go 1 more, and then that'll allow you to have some decent spacing there. And click on default scene root. We're going to go E. What we're going to notice, only the first one works, because all of these have the same functionality. They're all responding to C, but since C will only work on 1, you got to go in and change these. So now what we're going to do is we're going to, let's go ahead and bring in the sharps in first. I'm going to go C sharp. Fix that. Now let's go back here. Play. There it is. There's our keyboard. There it is. C, D, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C. Perfect. All right, there's our keyboard. Okay, so we have constructed our keyboard. Now what we want to do is we want to make sure that each of those keys is responding to a unique QWERTY input and is instantiating a unique pitch. And the way we're going to do that, we're just going to go to our content drawer, and we're going to click on all these. So we've got C. Now we want to go to D, and we just want to make D, we want to make that the letter V, and we want to make that pitch 62. Okay. We're going to go, oh, you know what, I skipped C sharp. Let's go C sharp. We're going to make that key, and if you just press this keyboard and then press the key you want, it automatically fills it up. That's going to go there, and we're going to go 61. That's C sharp. We got to do this for every note. Now, if we compile and save all those, if we did it right, we should have a Polysynth. Let's check it out. And I gotta say, it's pretty darn responsive, considering we're using a QWERTY keyboard. You can play chords. Now, our animation is a little bit wonky right now, and we can fix that a couple different ways. We can make the keys bigger. You can play around with the visual representation of that just by resizing it until you get it the way you like it. I mean, you could have the keys go up if you want, or just shrink. I don't know, whatever you want. The interface doesn't matter. It's the functionality that's important. All right, so now that we've added that to our universe and we're able to play it, what we can do is we can experiment with the sound. And this is a cool thing, since we're referencing the same Metasound for all of this. If we go in, let me just make this attack time slow and release time slow, and then let's see how that changes the sound. So now, so it's like a slow whiny pad that takes a while to release. You can come in here, you can tweak the cutoff frequency. Let's put that at like 400, and that'll make it a little bit warmer. You could go in, you could turn the filter off, just put 20,000, That's the highest pitch, the highest frequency. So now you got a pure square wave. You can change the attack time. Let's go 0.2 on the attack and 0.2 on the release. And let's do that, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you got all kinds of cool things you can do. Now when we get into FM synthesis, you'll see you can really make some cool sounds and funky stuff like that. So anyways, I know it's kind of a long video. Thanks for sticking with me. Hopefully this was helpful. I'd love to, if you guys create some cool stuff, hit me up. I'd love to check out the work that you're doing as well. And yeah, so I think I might expand on this a little bit and maybe try to do some musical puzzles or something, maybe that would unlock a door or something. I think that'll be cool to do. But in the meantime, hope this was helpful. Thanks for checking out the channel. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you in some future videos.